Hello and welcome back to Connecting to Spirit. I'm Lisa Brandis, and today's episode is focused on something essential for anyone beginning to channel: trusting the messages you receive. This can be challenging, especially when you're just starting out, but it's absolutely crucial if you want to receive guidance that's both clear and accurate for yourself and for others. Before we dive in, have you shared this podcast with a friend? I know if you know someone who's on a spiritual journey or who is looking to deepen their connection with their intuition, take a moment now to share this episode with them. Now, let's jump straight into today's topic. So, one of the most common fears when starting out is the worry. What if it's just my imagination? This thought is normal, and we're going to cover some practical tips for distinguishing between imagination and intuitive guidance. But I want to begin by sharing a story from my own journey. So I was at dinner and I was joined by three wonderful women, Rachel, Fiona and Venny. They were Reiki Masters whom I've had the honour of teaching. They were there to support me at this event. It was the very first time I'd done a public trance channel demonstration. And I have to say, having them by my side made such a difference. But even with their presence, I was super nervous. I was picking at my food, imagining all the things that might go wrong, and my mind was in total overdrive. I'm sure you can relate. Rachel, who's also a personal friend of mine, she was sensing my nerves and she looked me right in the eye and she said, "Look, I've just projected myself into the future. I've already been there. The event was amazing. You did a great job, as always, Lisa. Now stop stressing and eat your dinner." It was very direct, but she also kind of snapped me out of that negativity I was sitting in. I was letting my imagination run wild in a negative way and really worrying instead of being present with the beautiful women who had given up their evening to support me. Her words just instantly brought me back into the present. I relaxed, we shared a few laughs, and I was able to enjoy my dinner. And then we made our way back up to my centre, which was located in Vic Park. So the restaurant we were sitting at was just a short walk from the office or the centre. So later, as I was waiting in one of my healing rooms, ready to be introduced, I looked out across the audience and I could see there was this man sitting in the front row and he was literally typical front center. So not like I could even kind of not be aware of his presence sitting there. And he had his arms crossed and straight away my heart skipped a beat. My mind started racing again. And it's all part of the nerves of doing an event like this. And I started saying things to myself like, "Oh my God, his wife's probably dragged him here. I bet you he thinks this channeling stuff's real nonsense." Or worse still, what if he's a skeptic? And I literally took a deep breath and I asked Anya, my spirit guide, for help. And she responded really clearly by saying, "Don't judge him by his body language, Lisa." She said, "I've got you. Let's just focus on not just him, the entire audience, and be of service in the best way that we can." So in that moment, I knew I needed to shift my focus away from the worry. So when I did get out to the front, I kind of adjusted my chair slightly so I wasn't sitting directly opposite him. And I decided to expand my awareness to just take in the energy of the entire room, not just that one person. My beautiful Reiki Master, Fiona, helped to set the intention and the energy for the space. She guided everyone, including myself, into a place of love and connection. And then when Anya came through, she began to answer questions from the audience with such ease, and the energy just flowed as it always had done. The session turned out to be incredible, just as Rachel had predicted. And at the end, that same man who I had worried about approached me. I remember thinking, "Oh, here we go." My heart skipped a beat. And he actually came over and thanked me. He said, "That was such a great night. I loved it." He said the message that Anya gave his wife had answered a question that she'd been struggling with. And he said it had validated something he'd been saying to her for months. So it was around a decision And the channeled message reinforced the decision that she was going to be making to leave a particular job that she was in and unhappy in. And he'd been saying pretty much the same things that Anya had said to her as well. So this experience was such a great reminder not to let my imagination run wild with worry. So it is so natural to have fears and doubts, especially in this kind of work. We're human and those negative thoughts are just part of the journey. I've been channeling for 15 years and this event was about 5 years ago, maybe even a little longer. It was one of the first public trance channel demonstrations. But I just wanted to say that it's important to learn how to manage your negative thoughts instead of expecting them to disappear. What you will find with channeling or mediumship or healing, whatever we're doing, we're always expanding, which means we're always growing and moving into areas where there's discomfort. Where there's discomfort, it means there's growth and change. So we can turn down the dial on the worry and take small steps, which is the key here, small steps in the direction of our passion and purpose. So just to give you some context, I'd been channeling Anya through one-on-one healing sessions for a good 8 or 9 years before I took that leap to start trance channeling in front of a group of strangers. So I didn't just suddenly rock up one day and go, Anya, let's just do readings for a group audience. It's something that had been fine-tuned and practiced over years before I felt that that was the right next step for me. But it didn't mean that I wasn't stressed and nervous or even have doubts whether I would be able to do it. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is because over time, that trust builds. When you're supported by feedback from your clients, when you're doing channeled readings through working with Reiki, as well as knowing that beautiful feeling of being in flow when we are channeling. So I want to just finalize this by getting into some practical tips to help you start building trust in your own channeling and healing journey. So tip number 1, recognize imagination and intuition as close friends. Okay, remember that imagination and intuition are very closely linked. Sometimes we can dismiss our intuitive insights because they feel like our imagination. But often imagination is simply the gateway to your intuition, especially when it's mediumship and channeling. And when we're starting to get messages and guidance, it can come in through that imagination and intuitive process. Trusting this process starts by tuning into how each message feels. Is there a sense of calm and clarity and positivity? Then that's a strong sign it's intuition that's guiding you. My second tip is to build trust over time. You don't need full trust right away. Just like in my story, trusting in your guidance builds over time. Those moments when you validate what's coming through, like the feedback I got from the man after the session, are what strengthens your trust little by little. Start small and grow in confidence. Start with simple, small messages or ask for insights on light topics. I always teach my Learn to Channel students to work with angel cards because we start with a basic. We have a theory, a theme that comes from the cards that we pull, and then we start to talk and communicate with our guides and start to expand upon the message, either from what we read in the book, the guidebook, and then how we take that into how can we develop that communication and further deepen in the messages that we can get from our guides. So when we also practice in smaller, manageable ways, it helps us to build the trust without overwhelming us. I also suggest that you look for patterns and repetition. Pay attention to repeated messages. A lot of people will say they see 1111, and we always suggest that when you see a message, stop what you're doing and tune in and just connect with your guides and see if there's something that they want you to know or to identify, or check with the thoughts that you're thinking, because we create our own reality. So sometimes we have to stop and go into that observer mode and just see whether the thoughts we are having come from love or fear. Also, guidance will come through in different ways, but with a common theme or message. These patterns are assigned to trust what you're hearing or what you're receiving. So ask for validation as well. Finally, you can ask your guides for specific validation, whether it's a sign or just a feeling of certainty. You can ask your guides for confirmation to help you to feel more confident about the messages that you're receiving. The other thing I suggest is that students get together and practice with each other, because you know you're in a safe place to be able to slip up and make a few mistakes, which is part of learning anything. And it's certainly a part of learning channeling and learning how to connect to mediumship and your intuition. So there you have it. These are my 5 practical ways to build trust in the messages you receive when you're channeling. Remember, this journey is a process. With practice, patience, and a little faith, your trust will grow and channeling will become even more an even more natural part of your life. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you have enjoyed